Welcome everyone to today's session and live Q&A on SuccessFactors Talent Management Solutions from Tactical to Strategic HR with KPIT customer, Triumph Foods. So we want to welcome special guest Trudy Diaz-Farmer. She is the Human Resource Manager at Triumph Foods, and Terry Eisenmanger. He's the Director for the SuccessFactors practice at KPIT. And with that, Terry, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Tanya. Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here. And we're going to make this not only interactive, as was mentioned by Tanya, but we're going to do a little bit of upfront information just to kind of set the stage for you. We'll talk a bit about KPIT. We'll talk a bit about market trends. We'll talk a little bit about strategic and tactical HR, and then we'll launch right into a discussion with Trudy and any other members of the panel which might to ask questions of, although Trudy is really the star for that. So without any further preamble, please, let's move ahead. So this is just our overview. I wanted to let you know a few things about us, but I promise not to spend a whole lot of your time on this. The most important thing that we want to share with everyone about KPIT is that we are, in fact, a partner with SAP for all things. We are not just SuccessFactors partner. We have a longer running SAP partnership than we do a SuccessFactors partnership, even though our SuccessFactors partnership is 11 years old now. You can see the number of consultants and clients, etc., that we have, and this will, of course, be a document that we provide back to you if you want it. We'll give you that so that you can have it for further reference, and you can read these kinds of details later on. Please, Tanya. So what's the landscape look like today? We'll talk about some trends and some business drivers. I promise not to read all of these slides to you. Anyone can read as well as I can, and probably faster. A couple of important things to note, though, are the different ways in which people are making this change in technology to support what is being asked for by the real world, if you will, right? So there are hybrid modes, there are parallel and patchwork changes, there's hosting and outsourcing going on, and there's rip and replace modes. These kinds of things have been going on forever. These are just some current statistics or ideas of how much it is or isn't happening in each of the areas right now. However, if you look to the left, a couple of things that are really important to notice. 59% of people want to see integrated talent management. SuccessFactors is right in that spot, especially with its extensibility not only to run in these other modes connected to SAP at large, but truly any other ERP systems should you need or want to, likewise into your finance systems, etc. And everyone is wanting integrated data and analytics. Again, another sweet spot that is well covered by a SaaS or a cloud-based application. Please, Tanya. So here, I just want to share that, we've already gone through the phase over the last several years where we've worked very, very diligently to get HR their seat at the C table, right? We have CHROs now and many other titles for a similar role. We've tried so hard to get the organization to understand just how important human resources are at large, both for the company and for its constituents, right? Well, now we're moving into yet another phase, more revolutionary than evolutionary, where now that we're at the table, we're beginning to make some impact. And a lot of the ways that we're doing that are a couple of those things we just mentioned. For example, the deeper data analytics, things like how many people are we going to have to hire? We can plan further in advance. We can understand the type of hire we need to make, etc. So we're really moving at this to begin to make big data, as you've probably heard used thousands of times as of late, something really important based upon HR making an impact as an equal player, if you will, at that C-level table. Please, Tanya. Here's some more trends for you and some real drivers of change. 42% of companies are adapting their existing systems for mobile, device-delivered just-in-time learning. We have a lot of open courses that are available in the world today. Anybody can learn about anything via the internet, but the great thing about that is that those platforms are all fully interchangeable now. Everyone's coming up with responsive designs, which is just a fancy word for saying if you look at it on a tablet, if you look at it on a cell phone, or you look at it on a computer, you're going to see the same kinds of information formatted properly for the screen size, or the real estate, if you will, that you're using to see it. 74% of executives have said that digital for HR is a very high and or the top priority for them. Tanya, please. So let's talk about the real issue here. The most important part for all of us is how to use the avenues for HR that are both tactical and strategic, and of course, how to make sure that we align them. Notice that we've got a sampling here of what many of you are experiencing on a daily basis. Anywhere from 60 to 90% of a company's working capital annually is spent on their workforce. But as we all know, you don't really see a number that is directly reflective of that on the balance sheet. We haven't gotten to a point yet where we've accepted the fact that there needs to be some fiscal accounting for actual, if you will, human capital assets. Look at the strategic things listed here and see which of these resonate with you. Change is proactive and systematic. People are viewed as intellectual capital. Long-term proactive approaches to the business needs. But how do those become tactics? Well, with tools and integrated suites such as SuccessFactors, this kind of, if you will, forced marriage that you see represented by kind of the squiggly line between strategic and tactical activities is kind of eliminated. We have a much more straight line approach when you can look on tactical and see reactive measures to help resolve things. Change is handled in a slower manner. It's done piecemeal because we don't really have wholesale organizational change from an HR perspective as much now as we've had to in the not too distant past. We need to adhere to some pre-existing rules, and yet we need to make sure that those rules are, like our digital platforms, responsive to the changes in the world around us, especially as it relates to attracting and retaining people. You know, if we go out now with ads like we used to in attempting to find and secure the right resources to join us and help us evolve our companies forward, we're probably not going to do very well. Tanya, please. Here's some more information that's pretty important, and this is really a place where we start even further aligning the HR aspect of people first with the use of computer-based systems. You know, that you'll hear a lot from all the vendors about how their particular tool set, their software, their processes that are inbuilt, etc., do this job for you. But in all honesty, there's no such thing as a computer system that can do it for you. It has to do it with you. It has to do it at your direction. You're going to have to be involved. So the fact that the systems need to be integrated, that you need to have a platform which is one feeds the other for pieces and parts, that it's intrinsic, that all things interact and react. It's almost counterintuitive then to look at the systems from this grouping of things such as attracting and selecting people, or training and career development and succession, measuring performance, and employing and engaging employees. It all becomes one mass of HR, but obviously none of us can deal with all of those things simultaneously, so we need to make sure that we balance how we work in these areas and the tools that we use to do that. I think you'll see over the course of the rest of our discussion here how we can deploy tools such as SuccessFactors, such as strong process design work, strong understandings of where we are and where we want to go, what we need to do to get between the two places, that come out very quickly and very well in something that's a rapid deployment solution for software, like a SaaS-based system. And in this case, of course, I'm speaking directly about SuccessFactors, but other SaaS systems might be able to begin to match the pace and the skill of delivery. So Tanya, if you would, please. Let's talk about SuccessFactors itself. The three major areas that exist in SuccessFactors, you can see this green and blue and orange grouping, and it's really an alignment of several different modules that become these integrated pieces to help us do those things together. Get the right people working on the right things. Find those people and make them great. Support them with all types of not only measurements, if you will, to help them understand what we think as a company is needed to make us successful, but compensate them appropriately. Make sure that we're prepared to fill, backfill, and rearrange staff as is necessary for their own growth and development, as well as keeping us appropriately prepared to do things like succeed in the workplace, elevate our organization to a higher level, make sure that we plan what our workforce is going to look like going forward, and understand, if you will, running the business better by seeing these interactive or social medias and this tremendous number of analytics that are available to us in this suite. And it's all based, of course, on this cloud human resources true single source of the truth or employee system of record, Employee Central. Of course, there are things that aren't currently being done wholly in the cloud within this suite itself, yet some extremely tightly aligned partnerships exist, fully integrated off the shelf, as it were, or out of the box, as some might like to call it, where you can pull in information and share information back and forth between the systems. And again, that holistic nature of your organization, from person to person, from department to department, from company subgroup A to sub-business unit B to BU to SBU to SSBU, etc., all interact across this line of modules, if you will, all helping each other be with this one successful cloud. Hoping this kind of makes sense and isn't too esoteric for you. Tanya, please. So what I want to do now is kind of quit the sales pitch. I know that's what it sounded like so far, and I don't really mean for it to. And I want us to have some time here collectively as a group to spend time with Trudy, since she was kind enough to join us today. But first, we'd like Trudy to share some background information with you about Triumph Foods' path to success, if you will. So without further ado, Trudy?
Okay, good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me. I'm always happy to talk to clients or prospective clients of KPIT and SAP, because we came from a very dark place in HR in 2012, and so I will give you a little background of my story. I see there's a slide up here, and obviously you don't need to know everything about us, but we did organize in 2003, and we actually went live in late 2005, early 2006, and I've been with Triumph since 2006. At that time, we were a new facility, and really, you know, critical ideas and critical things that needed to happen were, you know, getting the business up and running, those revenue-producing things. So little to no thought was given to systems and structures. It was like how to get people in here, how to process pork, and, you know, at the very most had to figure out how to pay them and how to pay our bills. So really at that time we put in a very all payroll system and kind of ran with that for a number of years, and it was painful. We were the kings and queens of spreadsheets. We lived and died by Excel and VLOOKUPs and pivot tables and all of those wonderful tools that are out there, but that take, you know, twice as long to do what we really needed to do. In mid-2012, we got a new VP of HR who agreed with the rest of us and went, oh my goodness, I can't believe you are actually still doing this stuff on paper. And so we started to look at what we could do, you know, what made sense to us. And I will, you know, as Terry knows, because we've partnered with KPIT since the beginning of time, what he knows is we didn't go in saying SAP was going to be our answer, or any other system was going to be our answer. We went, you know, we put a request for quote out to a lot of providers, one which was SAP, and we kind of went at this two-folded. We looked at what we considered a best-in-breed option, which would have been somebody like SAP that had a suite of products that we really liked, like Employee Central, and had a great applicant tracking system, and had a good onboarding system, and integrated with who we wanted to go with benefits, and could integrate with our payroll provider. Or we looked at, you know, just as an example, kind of an ADP who has everything off the shelf, and you're probably going to get really, really good core payroll and tax reporting because that's where they live. But the rest of the products and the add-ons were kind of going to not be as good. So as we moved through the process, we really decided that we wanted to go with what we call the best-in-breed approach, and we really feel strongly that what we chose and where we ended up really spoke to that. So, you know, that's where we're at today. We started implementation in early 2013. Really, we sat down with the KPIT people and did our scope documents, and I remember vividly my first kickoff call on Employee Central, and they sent me my workbook, and I bet I just about fell out of my chair because it really made little sense to me at that point in time. But as I moved through with my implementation specialist, we were able to really work through and understand, you know, with their help, understand the business and what we wanted to do. What was critical is that all of these things work together for our employee base. Our employee base is 95% blue collar, okay? Language is a challenge, literacy is a challenge, but the one thing I noticed early on is they all had phones. They all had smartphones. So obviously they can navigate something. So back in July of 2013, we actually at that point went live with Employee Central, with Kronos, and for time and attendance and payroll, and for Benefit Focus as our benefits. And they were integrated with a single sign-on solution, which was critical to us. We had no desire to do anything other than have a single sign-on. That was a key situation for us. And since then, we've added applicant tracking. We've added the ATS system. We use their onboarding product. We use comp and performance management. We're currently in the midst of implementing learning and development, and succession will be later on this year. So, and JAM is also part of what we have. So we're very, very happy with our SuccessFactors products, and additionally with our partnership with KPIT.
Thanks for that, Trudy. So, Tanya, I think that it's a good point in time for us to open up to questions and kind of get into some stuff that people are really interested in hearing about or talking through.
Okay, yeah. I do have a question just in terms of the, like a typical implementation that would take for Employee Central.
Yep. I mean, like I said, we started in January. We signed a contract in late 2012. We started in January, and I was live in July. A lot of people think that's really, really fast. I guess because I didn't know it was fast, we got it done.
I can tell you that the Triumph Food story is a great story. What was really interesting and may not be obvious to those of you on the phone who are really just and some of you are just becoming aware of SuccessFactors and this kind of approach. Others of you are, dyed in the wool. You've been here a long time and you're just looking for some additional information. In 2013, the Employee Central product was, I think, Trudy, you would agree with me, relatively new. As a result, it was a little bit cumbersome at first with the integrations that were there with Kronos and Benefit Focus. In fact, I think we actually implemented during that time from January through July integrations with both of those vendors twice. We got it out there in its initial, if you will, somewhat rudimentary approach, and then we came back and made it much, much more effective and efficient. We made it easier to use. We were able to leverage the ever-evolving platform and the new releases that came out quarterly to help us. In those times, it was actually monthly. Those new releases came out to help us kind of expand the product set. Now, the product sets integrations are so much tighter. The tool of Employee Central itself is so much more advanced that a typical process time, but a much more robust initial launch, is still somewhere between 18 and 24 weeks. Do we have more questions, Tanya?
Yes. I have a question just in terms of which module would be best to start with.
For us, and I guess this is all, all relative to people's needs. For us, because we did not have, we weren't moving from a product that we weren't happy with or maybe didn't have all the bells and whistles, we had nothing. So the critical point of us, we had to get HRIS in first. We had to get Employee Central in first because, we just had nothing else. And you really couldn't build upon what we wanted to do without having that employee base information in. So that's the reason that we went by it the way we did, but we were probably a unusual case in effect that, we weren't moving from another product. We just had nothing. We were operating at a plant of 2,800 people with a payroll system that we had a few fields that we used as a quasi-HRIS.
And you'll find that with most SaaS-based systems, there's a claim that you can kind of do what you want when you want, meaning you can deploy different modules in kind of different sequences if you show desire. It's factually true with SuccessFactors that whatever your current needs are for process and system realignment, or move off of old platforms, or get that responsive design so that everyone can use any kind of media they have their hands on, any type of tool they have their hands on to see what they're doing, to do their work, whether it's manager self-service, doing things like setting up appointments with their staff to do things like review their performance, or one-on-one meeting request between employees and managers, or even employees in HR, or to do things like make offers out to new hires. You can use any of these tools now. As you look at the tools that are available, the various modules in SuccessFactors, you truly can start anywhere and go anywhere. Whatever tool you need to use, whatever module you need, or whatever problem you're trying to solve, can be as simple as a given module or multiple modules to get to the end. And if you remember, there were on that chart we showed you of the cloud about 11 different separations of things that happen. So the modules are well placed to stand on their own. They can run all by themselves. They don't have to have any other SuccessFactors modules with them. They can run in an integrated mode of any groupings you want, 1 module, 3 modules, all modules, doesn't matter. However, just like was done for Triumph, we advocate that if you're going to, at some point, move to the cloud-based single system of record, the HRIS of choice in today's world, Employee Central, that you probably should do it first. We all know when systems are implemented, it takes a bit more to kind of work backwards and add things later if you haven't made the right choices up front. And sometimes when you deploy an ATS, a recruiting system, or a recruiting management system, or even a recruiting marketing system, or something like a compensation system, that your HRIS needs to be involved in that data. Some of the information will be collected out in those other modules and fed to Employee Central, but vice versa is also true. Employee Central gives a base for the others. So if you put out recruiting management first, or you put out compensation first, or you put out succession planning first, you may need to retool a little bit if you bring Employee Central in later. So again, we advocate that you're going to do Employee Central first if you plan to do it. If you don't,
the other issue with that, Terry, is, and you know, we came across some of this too because we were very new, and even in the phased approach that we took, we put Employee Central, and then we got to comp, and there was a few things that we didn't, you know, we did not put into Employee Central that we realized after the fact we really needed to add, so we had to do very small modifications. But that is a very good point, and when you do a phased approach, you may not know what you need on the back end at any given time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tanya?
So, Trudy, can you talk, or Terry, a little bit more about just the hybrid and integration there with core HR and Employee Central?
Do you want to talk, Trudy, about your journey and adding those pieces as you went along, or do you want me to talk about the other aspects?
You could start, Terry, and then I'll go on. I'll add on to it. Is that okay?
Of course. No problem at all. So the hybrid approach, and in all honesty, SuccessFactors, and actually most of these talent management suites that are out there, that you know, Workday or Oracle or any of the others, their talent management suite is really employee-centric. And when you start putting out counterintuitively a module like Employee Central, your HRIS, your single system of record, or the truth about an employee, what's interesting is that particular module is much more focused on the organization than on the individual peoples. It's the organization, as in, what does our structure look like? Do we have companies and sub-companies? Do we have business units and sub-business units? Do we have departments, divisions, locations? Where do we do business? How do we do business? How many countries are we in? How many different languages might we need to make available to our workforce so that they're comfortable in doing their daily jobs or interactions with HR-based systems? Those kinds of things at the Employee Central level are really about supporting the organization's success, and the rest of the modules do even more about supporting the employees. And so marrying this employee-centric aspect and this corporate-based aspect, when you bring them together, you now have a very valid tool set to help you from end to end, as we like to say, from attract, hire to retire and beyond. Trudy, you have anything to add to that?
I don't. I think you covered it really well. Thanks.
Okay, great. So maybe we can just move on and talk a little bit about Trudy, the Recruiting Central, and how you went about that.
Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to. We initially, like I said, we put in Employee Central first, and then the next piece we went was to put in the applicant tracking and recruiting module. Understanding that we got a tremendous amount of pushback on that, we're in a very high churn industry. We basically, at this point, we turn about 42% on an annual basis, which I'm sure there's people like probably holding onto their chairs there, but the industry that we're in, that's not that unusual. So we would have people walk in on a daily basis and put in applications, and you can imagine the traffic of, needing to hire 40 to 50, 60 people every week, the traffic and just the unknown chaos downstairs with people coming in and putting in paper applications. And we had to have them in various languages, and, and you're holding them. So, it's been crazy. When we decided to go with ATS, we did get some, thoughts that, in fact, boy, people aren't really going to be able to navigate these applications. Our applicant flow is going to fall off. Well, guess what? The exact opposite happened. The people that we hire through, which is like the workforce development office here, some of the schools, some of the vocational rehabilitation centers, some of the refugee resettlement places, we actually sent them our information, invited them into the plant to view the system, to show them how easy it was, and actually they did the work for us. They went out to their people and said, okay guys, you don't now need to drive to St. Joe if you're coming from 30 or 40 miles away. You can go ahead and do this online. And we actually saw our applicant numbers go up. Additionally, we didn't have somebody, we could put in those great knockout questions, what's our hiring criteria for our production? And I'm talking really generally about our blue collar pool, because that's the biggest part of our hires. But, we could put those knockout questions, and I didn't have to have somebody looking through applications going, oh, he's only had 2 months of continuous work experience. That guy's not good. Let me throw that one in the no pile. So the system did a lot of the work for us. Then we get into the recruiting side for like the more strategic positions. Obviously it looks, a lot of it is about look and feel. When you're posting something out on a job board, you want people to be able to link to and look at a robust hiring site. We had nothing. It was, very old and antiquated. Send your resume to Trudy Diaz Farmer at Triumph Foods. Well, tells you nothing about the company. This way we can get our vision statement out there on the site. We can get our logo out there. We can tell people a little bit about us. It has worked very well since we initially installed onboarding or the ATS system. We're actually building another plant in Iowa, and we're doing, and I expect that they'll make a decision about their software up there at some point, and I would advocate for using the same suite of products. But for now, we've set up a microsite so that we can actually, have 2 locations, and people can fill out applications for STF and onboard for STF. So it's been, it's been very, very good for us. And then once we got the ATS in and put the onboarding piece on, we were able to, the onboarding piece actually saved us a ton of time and people hours, because with the hiring numbers we did of 40 to 50 to 60 a week, obviously you're having to have somebody data entry all of that new hire in. You have errors, timing issues, all of that kind of stuff. And at this point, now what used to take about a day and a half now takes about an hour and a half to onboard all of those people. We don't have to go through the manual e-verify process. It all happens through the system. When somebody comes in on their hire date, we run their docs, and boom, we're done. So the whole applicant, the human capital piece, the whole applicant tracking, the onboarding piece has worked fantastically for us.
So I do have a question, Trudy, just on social integration and how the recruiting module integrates with social channels.
We don't use a ton of that, but we do some of it. And what we do is generally, this week we've put a little video on our Facebook page and on our Twitter feed that says, hey, we're hiring production, and they can link to it. It takes them directly to our career site. So that works really well. Probably don't use it as much as maybe some more sophisticated companies would, but we are beginning to use that on our end.
Okay, great. So I don't have any other questions on this particular module. Unless, Terry, you have anything else you'd like to add, I can move on to the learning.
No, let's go ahead and move. That's fine.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I am loath to speak much about learning. We are actually in implementation right now. We realize that it is a valuable tool that we can use. Right now with our turnover, we do new hire orientation, for all of those new people every week. We've actually began building the content, and we're not assigning it to the employees yet, but we're launching it within the new hire orientation classroom so that the folks get a consistent message every week. So we're excited about that.
So I can throw some more insight out there, and Trudy will get to experience more of this as we get further along with Triumph there. The learning management system has been around for a very long time. It's actually a product that first SuccessFactors acquired, and then of course SuccessFactors was acquired by SAP, called Plateau. It's been out there for a long, long time. It is truly the best learning management system that exists. Now, of course, that's an opinion on my part, but I think if you read Magic Quadrants, you'll find who places where, and year over year, SuccessFactors places higher in the Magic Quadrant, or the study of systems by people who get paid to do that. It's one of, if not the top in every year. I believe it's been 10 out of 10 top pick for the last 2 or 3 years, maybe even longer. I can't remember the exact number of years now, by all of the analysts, the people who spend their time here. The learning management system is integrated, of course, with whatever your HRIS is. Whether it's Employee Central, you can integrate it back to your other ERP should you need or want to, your system of records there. You also have the ability to use connections between classes or other styles of learning, other learning content, and a part of people's goals going forward. So if you want to help someone develop for either a new role, a new opportunity, or if you want them to just take annual recertifications, etc., all of those things can actually be put on goals for them as you do their performance and goals aspects for the year, where a link can actually launch the learning right from the goal platform. So someone can be looking at their goals, they can realize that they're running a little behind on getting some things done they need to get done for things like advancing toward an additional certification, or again, refreshing licensing studies or things of that nature. Can launch it from their performance and goals area. They can launch it from the LMS itself. You can get into the learning management system as a native login, meaning login from the inter or intranets directly into it, or if you're already online inside the organization's systems and or the SuccessFactors remainder of the system, you can push a button and drop directly into your learner information. Likewise, if you're a manager, you can see that of your team or those people you're responsible for helping to move ahead. And of course, it's fully supportive of all aspects of learning administration and the whole learning and development part of the organization. Tanya?
Okay, so I don't have any questions actually on the LMS, and I hate to go back, but we did have a question which I believe was geared more towards recruiting. And just, Trudy, how did you deal with company business specifications that were not available in SuccessFactors? Their customization, or how did you deal with that?
We did, and we honestly didn't really find any that were not. And it may be that our application process is very simplified, but the application and it's so configurable, and I think that's hard for anybody that doesn't have this product to understand, because many of us have lived in places where we've used other canned products that didn't have the configurable feel to them that SAP does, and I think you get into, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to get out there what we need to? And we didn't have any of those kinds of issues.
Okay. Okay, good.
I can spread a little more on that if you'd like, if we don't have another question right this second.
Yep, go ahead, Terry.
Okay. So, Trudy hit on a point that you're going to hear about as you begin to look at things that are in this SaaS or cloud-based world, software as a service, or heck, I've been at this business long. We used to call these things service bureaus back in when I began doing it. But the point is that the tools are built to be used by any size, shape, color, and dimension of organization. And as such, of course, it has some predefined characteristics that you might look at, and this question says that someone has looked at and said, how are we going to do X, Y, and Z? And we hear about this no customization, no customization. Well, I have to be honest and say that the configurability that Trudy mentioned is so robust. There is so much opportunity in the pre-built, already available custom the configurations that can be done, that you feel like you've customized the system to fit your needs. I personally have been doing SuccessFactors implementations since 2005. I actually did the first ever generally available implementation of the recruiting management system, the ATS. I did also the first implementation of its second version when it was completely reworked, and have done over 50 or so recruiting implementations personally. And I can tell you that of all the different size, shape, color, and dimension companies that I have dealt with, huge industries, little tiny companies, what you want to get done, in about 95% of cases, it doesn't take us more than a couple of hours of discussion with you for us all to come to a place where we can do what you want to do. And those other, go ahead, Trudy. Yeah.
That's what I was saying. You just said it much more eloquently than I did.
Thank you for that. In those other 5%, we can find a way to get you what you need and what you want that still doesn't feel like a forced overlay. Of course, every rule has an exception, and there will occasionally be things that cannot be done, but I'd say to you that they are extremely limited, and on a quarterly basis they're becoming even more and more limited with this entire suite, not only the applicant tracking system, as it were, or the onboarding system, as it were, but all aspects. Tanya?
Okay, good. So we don't have any other questions coming in, but if anyone can certainly think of anything after the fact, we'll be happy to, give numbers out to everyone's contact information. I don't know, Trudy, if there's anything else you want to add, or we can kind of close it out.
I think it was very, I think it was pretty robust what we talked about. I think it gives you a good view. And like you said, I am, more than willing, if you give out email contact information and somebody comes up with a question after the fact, I'm always more than willing to answer those.
Okay, great. And as you can see here, there's a couple of people you can reach out to in the UK and Europe, Anand Kashav, and in the US, Steve Bradley. So please, again, note these numbers. We'll certainly give out the recording of this webinar, so you can either watch at your own, on your own time, and also, just feel free, again, to reach out with any questions you might have after the fact. And we thank you all for joining us today.
And Trudy, thank you very much. We really appreciate your help on this. It's great when potential customers come along and hear from someone who's been there and done that. So thank you very much, Trudy.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Terry. I always enjoy talking to you guys because you guys have made my life a lot easier.
Thank you for that.
Good to hear. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.